everybody to the last Youth and Family Unit Zoom for 2019. And I'm so happy to see so many people on. We're going to continue to have these booked. I know in January on the 15th, Elizabeth Waybright has scheduled a couple additional faculty from HD. Raven and Corey will be presenting. I'll find out more information about their topic and I'll share that. But there is a presentation definitely for the January the 15th. And then we will end up canceling the February 19th because that will be the Youth and Family. We will be face-to-face for that. Again, APs that would like to come and faculty are required, but APs are welcome to come to the joint Youth and Family Zoom. Talk with your supervisors, make sure that everyone's fine. I know some of you are more limited on your hours. We will be meeting here in Spokane, and hopefully it will come out, the announcement will come out today with the tentative schedule and hotel reservation information. I made a mistake. I thought we were at the Davenport, the old one. We are not. We are the Davenport Grand, which is the new Davenport downtown. So the new one. So I'm sorry I made that mistake. If for some of you I talked to earlier, I thought we were at the old one. But anyhow, the Davenport Grand is very nice. Nice, still walkable. It's only a few blocks from the original one. And then we will resume back up March 18th with the next Zoom and continue there. For the joint unit meeting, we will be meeting all day. The tentative schedule will be out. We'll start about 8 o'clock on Wednesday morning. So many of you have to come in Tuesday evening to start that early. We have Dr. Roger Redekamp, who is a new National Extension Health and Wellness Director. ECOP appointed him back, I think a couple months ago. Roger used to be at OSU in Oregon, and then he became the Ohio State Extension Director before he retired. But he'll be coming. He was happy to get the invitation and will be there to kick off our session with our new Extension Director, Vicki. And so they will start our conference. We'll be having a panel session from all 3 units, and then we'll break into some breakout sessions. And then after lunch, our Dean of Connors, Dean Wright, and the Dean of the Med School will both co-present, and we'll have more sessions. And then actually, anyone who has a poster from a national meeting regarding any health and wellness type topic, we are being encouraged to indicate on the registration that you're bringing something and would like you to share. And then on Thursday morning will be our third year presentations for our unit. And then there's an 8-hour training, which is being broken up for Thursday afternoon, mental health first aid for the adults and mental health first aid for youth audiences. And so we'll do 4 hours on Thursday and 4 hours on Friday, and we'll be completing that 8 hours by noon on Friday. If you've already been trained in one and would like to take the other, fabulous. If you are, and I'm really encouraging everybody to please sign up for one of them. This is a free training, and what I've heard from extension faculty in Montana, from other states, they really have found the training to be extremely beneficial. And whether you're working with youth or adults, kind of figure out which one fits your audience and which one you maybe haven't been trained in, but they both require 8 hours of training. So you will have to say you'll be there for the full 8 hours to be able to sign up, because otherwise you will not be given the certification for that mental health first aid training. And any questions about that part? Okay. All right. Well, I, again, am so glad everyone, we've got 28 people online, fabulous. I am so excited to have Maya. We are gonna record this. So I think the recording, I think Linda, could you hit the, oh, it is recording, great. For those who are not able to make it, I've had a number of requests. But I'm going to turn this over to Maya, and Maya is works in CAFRU, which is part of WSU, and it's actually part of our extension program. It's the Children and Family Research Unit, and I'm going to turn it over to Maya because you've been doing some fabulous research. She's been participating in our Zooms, and I know you did the writing cohort with our HD faculty and youth and family. And so she's been a member of our group for a long time, but I think many of you don't know Maya. So Maya, could you introduce yourself a little bit and then we're ready for you to start.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Doreen.
You're gonna have to speak up just a little bit more, okay?
Is this all right? Can you hear me all right? Not so much, huh? Okay, let me see about getting the audio a little closer. Does that make a little difference? Okay, yeah. Good. So I have slides to share this morning, but before I do, let me introduce myself. Like Doreen mentioned, I'm with the Child and Family Research Unit. We're actually part of WSU Extension, and we're housed here on the Health Sciences campus.
I hate to interrupt, but you're not coming through very clear at all. I don't know about anybody else.
It sounds like your microphone's really muffled. Is it like, is there something in front of where your microphone is on your computer, or?
Let me try. Like I'll move it a little closer. Okay. And I'll speak up, and if my, yeah, thank you for the feedback, you guys. Is this better? Okay.
Not very much.
Okay, Margaret, let me see how I can enunciate and help this along.
Some other people have to tune in whether they can hear.
Is there a way, Margaret, to turn up your volume by chance?
Yeah, it might be your volume, Margaret, because I can hear okay now.
Okay, can folks hear me okay now? Shall I go ahead? Yeah, not okay. Let me try and I'll check in with you again here in a minute. So my name is Maya Houghton. I'm with the Child and Family Research Unit. We're part of Extension. We're on the WSU Health Sciences campus. And this morning, I came to present with you all to help us understand the impacts of poverty on families and children in community service settings and the role of understanding cumulative risk to improve child and family outcomes. So if it's all right, I think I'll try to share my slides, and I'm going to walk you through a little more introduction to myself and our research unit, background to our research study, and then some of the highlights from our findings. How's the sound staying with us? Is it okay? Okay, so here is my slides, if that works. Can you see them okay? All right. So I'm also going to okay. So before I get started, let me tell you about my training. I've been centered around using research and evaluation to support high quality public service support for vulnerable at-risk children, families, and service providers. My research focuses on understanding the protective factors that help schools and communities impacted by trauma. I'm currently a PhD student in the WSU Prevention Science program, which many of you know is the Department of Human Development's graduate program. My advisor is Yoshi Asano, who presented to the Youth and Family meeting back in May. Yoshi is based on the Vancouver campus. I have other committee members, Dr. Jane Lanigan, who's also with the Department of Human Development on the Vancouver campus. Dr. Susan Finley, also on the Vancouver campus, but in the Department of Education, and Dr. Justin Denny in the Department of Sociology on the Pullman campus. I also recently had the opportunity to collaborate with some of you during the all-day WSU strategic planning event. So hello to those of you on the call this morning who I also saw during that event. It's nice to be together again today. Okay, so I had started to tell you a little bit about CAFRU. Let me tell you some more. We're a small research and development unit within WSU Extension. We have been formerly known as the Area Health Education Center from 2008 to 14, but have since then shifted to the core focus of CAFRU. The Child and Family Research Unit, also known as CAFRU, works with community allies to promote health and wellness for underserved and at-risk populations through research, community development, and education. We work with a range of challenges facing families and communities, but our principal focus is on working with community systems to address the public health challenge of adverse childhood experiences, what I'll also refer to as ACEs, and the resulting trauma from those ACEs. So specifically, we focus on how systems help individuals of all ages build resilience and recover from adversity. To do our work, we use community outreach, engagement, and relationship development in response to participant needs and priorities. We are identified as a National Category 2 Trauma Center by the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, which links us to a national network of trauma experts disseminating evidence-based practices to mitigate the effects of trauma, both for individuals as well as organizations and systems. So there's a portfolio of funding that supports our work. We're all grant and contracted funded. We're currently funded with grants from the U.S. Health and Human Services Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, also known as SAMHSA, and the Kaiser Family Foundation, among others. In the past, our funders have included the Washington State Office of Financial Management, the California Endowment, the Juneau Community Foundation, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to name a few. So I've included our unit contact information on this slide and encourage you to check out our website where we have research papers, practice briefs, instructional webinars, videos, and other information you might find useful. It's really quite a rich and deep resource for reference. When Doreen contacted me to inquire whether I would present about the impacts of poverty in community service settings, I accepted and have been excited to use this opportunity with you all today to talk about cumulative risk as an entry into understanding how to get to improved outcomes for the families we serve. The research team at CAFRU includes me and our unit director, Dr. Chris Blodgett. We also have staff who do program development, implementation, and scale up of the program. On the call today, I have my colleague, Levi McGarry. So it's great to have a team working here as part of our work. A little bit about how I thought we could use our time today. The plan for our brief time might be that we can think together about the developmental impacts of cumulative risk. This will include consideration of poverty, adversity, complex trauma, and the relationship of those experiences to school achievement in our state. So complex trauma, let me make sure that we have a little bit of a common understanding of that. Complex trauma is the unpredictable and chronic exposure to a cluster of events, most often within a child's caregiving system, which is intended to be a primary source of safety and stability. Complex trauma is the term to persisting adjustment struggles combined with exposure to multiple ACEs. These adaptive struggles are distinguished from how we commonly refer to acute forms of trauma or to adjustment concerns that are not linked to adversity. So this focus to our work has shown us that poverty is one of many layers of experiences that combine to characterize communities, schools, even families. The common experience of poverty can be accelerated with the addition of complex trauma, lack of opportunities, and other barriers that certain populations face. Our research has confirmed that poverty doesn't guarantee adversity, but poverty and adversity can co-occur. Poverty can increase stress and vulnerability to adversity. Simply put, living in poverty while also experiencing adversity and resulting trauma accelerates poor adverse outcomes. For example, For some young siblings, depending on their caregiving setting, growing up in poverty could mean reduced access to learning materials and other material goods. But when that family is also exposed to ACEs, for instance, witnessing substance abuse or domestic violence, those siblings have increased developmental risk and adjustment struggles. These interwoven influences define conditions that contribute to significant variation in risks and assets across communities. So today, I'll share with you our research focused largely on the relationship of poverty and ACEs to share some highlights and lessons and leave some ample room for discussion. To support the conversation and smooth presentation, I'm asking for you guys to hold your questions or comments until the end of these 15 slides. Jot down your thoughts or send a question to the chat box if it's functioning, and otherwise we'll make sure that we have time at the end of the conversation. So as we all know, poverty can be a real barrier for large sections of our communities. The overall percent of poverty in Washington is 10.3%, with 12.5% among children under 18 years old. The Washington state poverty rate showed little change in the 80s and 90s, but has spiked more recently, likely because of the 2007. People over 65 years old are the only group that have shown significant long-term declines in poverty. For this oldest age group, poverty fell from 23% in 1969 to only 8% in 2017. This significant decline in poverty among the older adult population can best be explained by the expansion of Social Security and Medicare benefits. So this slide shows the unequal distribution of poverty among families with children, as well as individual high school graduates among the adult population. The map on the left shows that the presence of children is associated with higher poverty rates for families. Statewide variation in the percent of families in poverty ranges from 4% to 17%, depending on the county of residence. While not shown here as a separate map, when drilling down among subgroups, the proportion of female-headed households with children living in poverty was 31%, considerably higher than 8% of female-headed households without children in the home. The map on the right shows statewide variation in the percent of adults over 25 years old who graduated from high school. The rates range from 65 to 96%, again, depending on the county. Counties of Garfield, San Juan, and Whitman had the highest percent of high school graduates, between 95 and 96% in those counties, whereas Adams, Yakima, and Franklin counties had the lowest percent of high school graduates, between 65 to 74%. It is very likely that you all understand this variability from living and working within your local communities. Today, I'll tell you about a series of research reports that the team of us at CAFRU have done to unpack the unique effects of poverty, adversity, and academic outcomes. These studies are where we've continued to participate in what we're calling sort of a paradigm shift to expand thinking about the cumulative risks impacting families. So we conducted a series of studies to examine the community characteristics that could help us understand these variabilities. Building from what we know in the two maps here, we were able to look within each county to the school locale level, and we added a measure of adult ACEs to help understand variability. So before I can tell you about our studies in detail, I'd like to provide a brief overview of the adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs, so that we are all starting from somewhat of the same starting point. Many of you probably know about this study, so I won't spend a lot of time, but I do want to ground us in the fact that ACEs are potentially traumatic events that occur during childhood, such as experiencing or witnessing violence, abuse, or neglect, or having a family member die by suicide. Also included are aspects of the environment that can undermine children's sense of safety, stability, and bonding, such as growing up in a household with substance misuse, mental health problems, or instability due to parental separation or incarceration. ACEs have been known to be a strong predictor of later development concerns like disease, injury, and risk behaviors. Most important for our research, ACEs have been shown to impact all economic, ethnic, and racial groups, and because of this, provides a common framework for describing risk across communities. So the CDC Kaiser Permanente ACEs study was the seminal study that examined childhood abuse and neglect and household challenges in later life health and well-being. The study has uncovered how ACEs are strongly related to the development of risk factors for disease throughout the life course. The original ACE study was conducted at Kaiser Permanente from 1995 to 97 with 2 waves of data collection. Over 17,000 HMO members from Southern California receiving physical exams completed confidential surveys regarding their childhood experiences and current health status and behaviors. The ACE score is the total sum of the different categories of ACEs reported by participants. The study revealed that ACEs are common across all populations and subgroups, though some populations are more vulnerable to experiencing ACEs because of the social and economic conditions in which they live, learn, work, and play. The table on the left shows that over 2/3 of study participants reported at least 1 ACE, and more than 1 in 5 participants reported 3 or more ACEs. Since the original study, subsequent studies have consistently shown a graded dose-response relationship between ACEs and negative health and well-being outcomes. So in other words, as the number of ACEs increase, so does the risk for negative outcomes. As ACE exposures pile up, adults with higher levels of ACEs experience increased risk, such as alcohol and drug use, depression, poor health, and increased chronic illness. This slide shows the ACE pyramid, which is the conceptual framework for the ACE study and findings. The graphic shows mechanisms by which ACEs influence health and well-being, understood to originate at conception with intergenerational transmission of historic trauma embodied in social conditions, local contexts, specific experiences, disrupted brain development, and restricted social emotional functioning that can lead to adoption of risk behaviors where disease and social problems can precede early death. Okay, so with that original ACEs research to grow from, I'd like to now shift to research we've conducted here at CACRU in cooperation with OFN's Educational Research and Data Center. I will share results from our No School Alone and Every Child School Ready studies. For our overall research questions guiding the series of studies, we set out to examine how community and school characteristics of poverty and ACEs predict differences in school readiness and school achievement. The full reports and other research are available on our website, but for today, I'd like to share with you the highlights. So the series of cross-sectional descriptive studies utilized public education data and community risk and protection data available through 3 state agencies: the Washington State Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, OSPI, the Department of Health, DOH, and the Department of Social and Health Services, DSHS. The OSPI data includes data organized at the school level with over 2,900 schools representing about 500,000 students who completed assessments. The OSPI data is also the source of our poverty measure, which is the percent of students eligible for free and reduced meals, also known as FRM on some of these slides. The Department of Health Healthy Youth Survey data represents youth reported health behaviors for over 200,000 students in grades 6, 8, 10, and 12. The Department of Health Behavioral Risk Factor Survey in 2011 included over 30,000 adult survey respondents who reported ACEs during their childhood. This adult measure of early adversity becomes our community ACE measure for these studies. We also included 5-year rates of community risk data from DSHS that is organized at the school locale level. That school locale has become our unifying geocode. So the school and youth and community data were all aggregated up to the school locale level. And that level, it organizes the 294 school districts in Washington into 118 groups. Locales are either large school districts or smaller districts grouped by similarities in students and community characteristics in the area of the state. So for Washington State, this means that 59 of the 118 locales are single districts, while the remaining 59 locales include 2 to 12 districts in a single locale. This graph shows the distribution of Washington schools grouped into 3 levels of poverty and 3 levels of community adult reported ACEs. So as a reminder, we define poverty by the percent of students eligible for reduced price meals, and community ACEs is defined by the percent of adults reporting 3 or more ACEs during their childhood. So there is almost 50% more high poverty schools compared to schools defined in the low poverty group, 942 schools compared to 652. However, by contrast, community ACEs place roughly half of all schools, more than 1,100 schools, in our intermediate ACE group. That's the group with 25 to 35% of adults reporting more than 3 ACEs during their childhood. The graph also shows that high poverty schools are disproportionately in higher ACE communities, but also that low poverty schools are not without the challenges of ACEs in their communities. When we examined over 100 social and health indicators, we found that ACEs and poverty are highly associated with health and youth risks. These tables present the significant relationships we found between those community risk and protective factors, poverty and ACEs, community ACEs, that is. So the Burfus risk factors are all significantly related to school poverty except one. So that includes physical and mental health, BMI, overall life satisfaction, whereas community ACEs was found to be related with each Burfus risk factor except 2. The DSHS community risk factors are also significantly related to school poverty. So that includes laws and norms favorable to drug use, perceived availability of drug use, favorable attitudes toward drug use, and opportunities and rewards for pro-social involvement. When we examined the community risk factors next to community ACEs, we found significant relationships for each factor except 3. Those 3 exceptions were TANF, alcohol-related deaths, and low birth weight. The Department of Health Healthy Youth Survey data shows that all risk factors are significantly related to poverty, and half of them are associated with ACEs. Those associations include family protective rewards for pro-social involvement, school commitment and failure, and peer perception of drug use risk. In our study, looking at the 2017 data for all students, both poverty and community ACEs were found associated with meaningful differences in math test results across all grades. The study found pronounced differences based on level of school poverty and level of adversity. So for instance, these graphs show math assessment results by poverty and by ACEs for grades 3 and 8 students. The graph on the left shows that grade 3 students within the highest poverty schools, so that's the gray line on the bottom, had the lowest pass percent across each level of community ACEs. So you can see that high poverty schools are showing considerably lower achievement pass rates. For instance, across all levels of community ACEs, among the highest poverty schools, we see 15 to 20% differences in the rate of students passing. The graph on the right shows a similar pattern for grade 8 students. The highest poverty schools have the lowest pass percent rates across all levels of community ACEs. Among the highest ACE communities, the difference is between 33% of students passing from the highest poverty schools to 49% passing from the lowest poverty schools. We also found systematic differences in academic performance, school poverty, and community ACEs as a function of type of community the school serves. So for instance, this slide shows the average percent pass for English and math assessment results by community type and grade. We utilize designations of city, suburban, town, and rural provided by the National Center for Educational Statistics, and we found stable differences in the type of community and average pass percent. The trends are different for English language arts compared to math, but overall, we see that suburban schools have the highest mean pass percent results, schools and towns the least, and city and rural schools demonstrate intermediate levels of success. So the key findings and recommendations from the series of reports that I'd like to leave you with today are these. First, not all schools and communities are the same. Using ACEs in addition to poverty helps add explanatory value to our understanding of poverty in community-based service settings. Poverty and intergenerational impacts of adversity in communities can effectively be used to predict outcomes, in this case, school-wide achievement. The research findings inform strategies to mitigate the effects of poverty and adversity. For instance, investment in state and local partnerships, ensuring professional development supports are available to address poverty and adversity among families. And we also see the importance of building and sustaining public data infrastructures that allow for the use of poverty and ACEs to continue to inform program, practice, and policy development. And there is one final lesson I'd like to share with you this morning. Resilience is a shared success and can help inform next steps that we're all working on. Children and families are not only a composite of their deficits, but are whole beings with strengths and vulnerabilities and challenges. The lessons from our research have involved recognizing indicators of school and community success, as well as challenges that define levels of success. Resilience is the capacity to resist effects of adversity. And resilience includes not only the individual's capacity, but the capacity of the individual's informal and formal communities to support growth under stress. What we have learned is that the biggest impact on positive outcomes following trauma results from changing the capacity of the systems supporting the individual. Our work also recognizes that cohesive communities with shared values and high social support act as buffers to trauma effects even when trauma exposure occurs. So building community resilience requires engagement in processes that protect vulnerable individuals from acting in ways that harm themselves or others. Protective factors known to buffer the risks of poverty include caregiver skills, pro-social norms and opportunities, support systems like parent education and mentorship, literacy programs, school lunch programs, and other food supplemental supports. So I want to emphasize this point. Your work in extension can be a protective factor to buffer the risk of poverty and adversity. When faced with stress, protective factors can balance adverse effects. In conclusion, here at CAFRU, we are committed to helping communities, schools, and families pivot to resilience as a universal goal. We believe that positive outcomes are most attainable when we don't pathologize individuals most at risk, which allows us to extend past narrow clinical treatment-based approaches to see the conditions of our communities and organizations as instrumental in the services provided and the practices maintained. So that concludes the organized slides I had for today. This slide has my contact information, and you all are invited to contact me directly if you'd like a copy of this presentation or for more information and conversation. Thank you for joining the call today. And if I understand correctly, we have time for conversation. So with that, I'll open it up for conversation, and I'll close these slides and turn on my video.
Okay, Maya, thank you. And so I saw in the chat box, I think, so people were interested in your presentation, your slides. I'm wondering which would be the best way to do that, to share those, if Maya, if you're okay with that.
Absolutely, yes. If it's, I'm willing to give out individual copies, or Doreen, I can send you and Linda a copy and you could share it out with the whole group, however you prefer.
How about, go ahead, somebody who was going to talk.
I was saying to Maya that she could send it to Linda and I can send it out to the listserv.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan.
Okay. And then I saw Joy Lyle had to leave for a meeting, but she's going to call you because she wants to talk. And Michael, did you, yeah, I know you talked a little bit about community efficacy. Do you want to say anything about that, or a question, Maya?
I was just saying that particular data definitely speaks to the idea of community efficacy, which is something we were talking about on the evaluation team. I think it also really helps support the efforts around equity and looking for equity in education, because it demonstrates that things are socially constructed more than just pathologically constructed in individuals. And I think that was a great message.
Maya, this is Debbie in Walla Walla, and our community has really done a lot with trauma-informed care and the ACEs and the Paper Tigers video and that type of thing. But when I meet with them over the last 10, 12, 15 years, they don't take 4-H and other things seriously, and they try to come up with a plan, and their plan was to start a new youth organization, and they wouldn't really take us seriously in it. I'm going to use some of this language a little better. I've had their training and more, but I'm going to try to, I think the low-hanging fruit to begin with is to help us get more leaders and some training. And anecdotally, we know for most youth that 4-H works if they're a part of a regular club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Debbie and Michael. What's interesting about what you shared, Debbie, is yes, we see it across different communities and settings that different groups are trying to organize around responding to the what we know about ACEs and the prevalence in communities. And sometimes starting from some real foundational and grounding literacy development and conceptual development together helps make sure we're all speaking the same language, in which those priorities can be identified and engagement strategies can be determined and supported with the activities. So yeah, we're really in favor of helping helping, but also just encouraging folks to build from a common literacy and make sure we all understand what ACEs are, what adjustment, what trauma, complex trauma, and the associated adjustment struggles are, how they play out in community settings, and then from that understanding and that cohesion together through that learning process, build a response strategy.
Other questions for Maya? Yeah.
I have another comment if no one else does. One of the things I had to do to go move in this direction is, this is going to sound bad, is be more tolerant of some of my leaders' behavior at where they're starting from and help move them and educate them, but I couldn't have the same rules to begin with because I had to meet them where they were. But as I brought leaders on that are in poverty and have a lot of ACEs and that type of thing, we bring youth, they bring youth with them and attract youth to their clubs. And we've seen a lot of them graduate from high school, if that's, you know, that's a indicator for me. But I've also had to put up with a lot and handhold a lot and grow those leaders in a way that when I started this position, we probably would have just got rid of them for some of the behavior. So it's a challenge in that way too. Hopefully I'm going the right direction.
Yeah, well, thank you for your attention and hand holding out there. I think there's no end to the support that we can all provide each other to help understand these complex issues and how they play out. And one of the things that we find in the work is that if it's not us individually having experienced ACEs, someone we care about or love typically has. So finding that as a common starting point, oftentimes, to your point, Debbie, does become an effective way to engage awareness and activity toward a response and solution.
Maya? I'd like to jump in, and I'm really fascinated by the generational embodiment historical trauma piece. I'm wondering if you could say a little bit more about that, because my gut reaction to that is that really informs whatever we're doing in our DEI as well.
Yeah, so this is an important component of the work. We're really lucky that the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance Survey in 2011 in Washington State included those questions of the adult survey telephone respondents. Different states have been keeping up with that survey more regularly since Washington State participated in that, but we would be in favor of continuing that practice in some structure here in Washington State. We are also in favor of retaining the 10 items of ACEs for that scale development. And I guess, Wendy, let's keep talking, because one of the things that's just emerging right now is a deep dive into our recent Head Start research study looking at dyadic ACE scores. So we are now just doing analysis looking at parents' ACE scores and relationship to Head Start age children, 3, 4, 5-year-olds, and their ACE score. So as we understand that data and implications for service development, we might have more information to share and some further obvious conversations to have about the implications of the data. And actually, I'm curious, because your sound kind of faded out right at the end of what you were saying, like informing something that you're about. Would you share that a little bit more with us? And then that will give me a background to think about how our work is relevant.
Yes, and it was similar to what Mike Wallace already said, that I think it informs our work, our diversity and equity inclusion work.
Okay, thank you.
Looking at that historical trauma and how does that play out in this context, yeah.
So it was really interesting for us as we began to work with that Burfus adult ACEs data, when we saw the variability of adult reported ACEs and the significant impact of communities with more than 35% of adults reporting some adversity in their childhood. So taking that as our community measure becomes an important sort of environmental contextual feature in thinking about what we can expect as outcomes from our kids and families in different service sectors.
Well, thank you, Maya. This has been really interesting.
Oh, thanks for your interest, Wendy.
Other questions? Okay. Well, Maya, thank you very, very much for sharing this. I know there'll be some more people getting back in touch with you. And I'm sure please, you continue to join us, I know, on the monthly calls. And we have a number of people in the chat box just saying thank you and excellent research. So thank you very much.
So great to be with you this morning.
Okay. All right. So again, we'll see, I think, probably almost everybody at the joint unit meeting in February. I will send out, as soon as I hear from Elizabeth, what Raven and Corey will be presenting for the January 15th Zoom. I want to also go back to, we have annual reviews coming up. As you saw in the email that came out, they are due at the end of January. I know that for the faculty annual reviews, Pam sent out, I think I have most of mine either out there scheduled or pending. And I know Nancy is also looking at getting hers scheduled right away. They'll primarily be in the month of February because we have to make sure that we get those together. And admin team looks at those, and then we have to have everything back out to everyone sign for your signature after we've had those submitted initially. Okay, so please don't sign your annual reviews until you get those officially back from your supervisor or from Linda. Other than that, there was, Mike Gaffney recorded a Zoom on Activity Insight, and I've heard rave reviews on that recording, so please take time to look at that and listen to Mike's words of advice for Activity Insight. Does anyone else have questions? Oh, Leanne, your microphone. Leanne, you're missing. Can you type it in? Can you type it in the chat box? Oops. Anybody else have questions?
I had one quick one.
Sure.
Is there going to be a follow-up at all from our unit about Activity Insight? I know Jana was going to work on kind of getting the verbiage and where to put the stuff. Can we maybe hold like just a informal, those who just need a little more help with Activity Insight, some direction would be great, because I keep going into it and then I just get confused where to put everything. In the Zoom that Mike did, he talked about do put things duplicated in these two spots. I just would really like some clarity. Like, I don't want to do extra work, and I don't want you guys to have to dig around through our annual stuff to find it. So I would really appreciate just a little bit more guidance on that. And again, if it's after the holidays, that's fine, because not everyone's going to get it between now and New Year's anyway. So maybe like early January, just do an informal, this is where you're kind of expecting some pieces as we're learning this really new system.
Okay, sure. No, I can do that. So I'm just going to pull up my calendar. I'll just do informal and then we can record it. Why don't I look at, maybe I'll hold it January the 11th or 8th or 11th. Probably the 11th, and I'll record it. Is that all right?
Oh, that would be perfect. I really appreciate that, because I go in there and then I click around and I keep thinking, is this me? Isn't this me? I'm not sure what you all are looking for in it. And again, I don't want to duplicate if we don't have
Okay.
So
all right.
The part that I heard the Mike mention, and maybe this is what Dan said, is he said to report things, the same things in different areas, and to make sure that we had it in there. And I think that's a waste of time. Because then in the end the report's going to have all this duplicate information. So if we could get some clarity on that too.
Well, and I think Margaret, if Doreen says, okay, put all of your stuff in this one spot, that if it's like this, then that would help Doreen pull those pieces that she needs to do the federal report.
Okay. How about this? I just looked at the calendar and I know you guys are wanting to get these Activity Insight done even earlier. So I'm going to go with the 10th of January, not the 11th, because Fridays are always bad days. I'll go with the 10th, and I'm just going to say at 10 o'clock on the 10th. All right. I will record it, and I'll try to be as succinct as possible. But let me go back, and I'm going to also talk a little bit with Mike. We have a call tomorrow with Mike and Todd, and just kind of touch base with them. And I'll do it on the 10th at 10. Okay.
This is Friday the 10th, right?
No, Thursday now. I'm going to do Thursday, just so you have another day. So I'm going to do
Thursday on my calendar is the 9th.
Oh,
mine too.
I'm sorry. Here we go. I was in 2019. Thank you very much. Okay, no, I'll do it. And we have a county director call at 11. So let's do the 9th at 10 o'clock. sorry, January 9th, Thursday at 10 o'clock. All right.
Doreen, I have a quick question also. And I heard you were talking about annual reviews. I was confused because, so you said January 31st is the deadline, but Pam was scheduling some of her annual reviews for February. And I was confused. And I said, Pam, does this work for the deadline? And she said, yes. But I was confused. It is it January 31st that you have to have all of the annual reviews done?
No, that's when you have to have activity insight.
Oh, okay. Phew. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'm glad I misunderstood. Okay.
Yeah, and if people are done, I mean, if you're going to be accomplishing this earlier and you want your annual review before January 31st, awesome. I'm available. I booked out the last 2 weeks of January because I thought we were going back to the old days when activity insight, or it always had to be in about the middle of January, about the 15th. But but now the dean, because the provost having an interim provost, the directions and such did not come out until just actually last week. So we went and set the date, and that's when also the provost has it at the end of the month. So Pam has started to schedule annual reviews. I'm trying to get them all done in February. So, but those of you who supervise people, if you could please do their annual review before I meet with you, that would be fabulous. Okay? Do the best
I
you
do
can.
want to mention that Pam is gone now until spring. So if you have any follow-up, please follow up with Linda.
And when you say Linda, you mean you, right? Like there isn't another Linda.
No.
Okay.
Me.
So if we didn't hear from Pam about our review, would that come from you, Linda?
I will be going in and double checking everything that she's scheduled. I asked her to send out calendar invites, so I will be checking all of that within the next couple, well, I'll probably be working into next week a little bit and confirming that all of that is correct. So check your calendar invites. If you have not received a final calendar invite, get back to me and I'll get you scheduled.
Okay, I didn't get one.
Okay, I will be looking for yours.
I think that's Dan because Nancy's in the lead for yours. Okay.
Oh, that would make sense. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'll work with Robin to ensure that the 4-H ones are getting scheduled.
Linda, this is Anna Maria. The last calendar invites that went out, or at least the one on mine, it's for President's Day. So we're actually doing it on the holiday, the non-work day.
I will go in and check that.
I'll send you an email. I just wanted you to know.
Okay.
Which is fine. I
don't think WSU has President's Day as a holiday.
Yeah.
You get the day after Christmas, so that's a work day for WSU.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
But if you have it, if you need to switch it, just contact Linda, and
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll be flexible.
Doreen, can you help me? So who are you the person who does their own reviews, and who does Nancy, and who does Nancy and Doreen together? Who do we set? Did we split it up by alphabetically, or who does what?
Sure. So what we're doing is that if your tenure track, Nancy and I are doing them together. I'm taking the lead, and so for tenure track faculty, we do them together. I'm taking the lead. Nancy will join in through Zoom or face-to-face if she's able to. For those who are tenured and you're at the end of the alphabet, then if you're FCS primarily, I'm taking you, you have me. If you're towards the end of half end of the alphabet and you're tenured, Nancy will take the lead there. If you're, and also career track. If you're primarily 4-H, Nancy is taking the lead. If you're promotion track, end of the alphabet, FCS, I'm taking the lead. Does that make sense? Some of our APs, Nancy has. Some of the APs, if you're in SNAP Ed, I'm taking the lead with that, on some with the state level. It gets a little confusing, but just hang on. You're on a list. You're looking very perplexed.
No, I get it. I did get the email from Pam already. So I know I'm taken care of, but I was like, oh, I wonder how that works. I just was curious.
Yeah. So we're trying to, and it's the same thing in A&R. Jim Croft splits it with Todd, and so we're trying to separate those. If you're in the front half of the alphabet and you're tenured, then you get the abridged. And I'm doing Zooms, and I think that's how Nancy's planning on doing the Zooms also. Okay. I guess, did I make mud out of that one, trying to explain it?
As long as you understand it, it's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
We just have to get through all of them, and I am so thankful that Nancy is on board. And for a few years, there were a lot of annual reviews to complete. So just make sure that if you are supervising anybody, that you try to meet with them before your annual review, so that way we can talk through things. When the admin team gets together, and I know that our new extension director, Vicki, is very interested in how this all works, and would like, she's going to be asking questions. And again, if there's someone that you supervise, we need to have some information so we can share about those personnel also. Okay? Janet.
Yes, thank you, Doreen. I just wanted to make sure you saw the note in the chat box. Leanne was saying that Mike's recording said that it has expired, and Debbie had asked that please be reposted.
Thank you. Yes, and I
would like to see that.
I will find out why it has expired. Maybe where Chrissy uploaded it was for a short term, but thank you. I will double check to make sure that that's extended. How about, and then Linda can put something out up to everybody about where to find it now if it's changed. Okay?
That would be great. Thank you.
You bet. Other questions? I hope everybody takes some time over the holidays to refresh, rejuvenate, spend time with family and friends. And it's been a fast and furious year. And I hope that everyone is able to spend some time decompressing. And I hope these things get turned off for at least a few days so that you unplug. And I'm hoping to unplug, and I hope everybody else does too. We will have a fabulous new 2020 new year, and we're going to start with a great new extension director who is excited to get to know us. Just as a FYI, she is planning to travel around the state we're looking at about once a month starting in March, a visit to one region in March, April, May, June, and maybe even July, and drawing county personnel together in a region. So that way, she would like to make 39 counties and one tribal office, but we're probably just going to be doing, just to start with, 5 different regions around the state, and more to come on that, but that is her desire. And we will be inviting the dean and others, mainly the dean, to join if he can when we make those stops. But you will be hearing much more about that in January. We're just starting conversations. Okay.
Doreen, one thing that would be helpful is, I know that you're closed during the week of Christmas, but the week after that, when some of us will probably be working, if you, Linda, Nancy, whoever we need to contact in your office, if you could put up a notice that you're not there, so we don't keep calling when we don't get answers.
Sure.
Or keep sending emails, so we just know when people are going to be in, so we don't spend time trying to find someone.
Yeah. We will definitely, I know all the offices here open up on Thursday the 2nd. So Lynn and I are definitely here the 2nd and 3rd. And at the moment we're not, I mean, I'm available, just call in the cell. I'll forward my phone to my cell if you need me that week. But we'll be in the office on Thursday and Friday, 2nd and 3rd, okay?
And my phones go to my email, and I check my email to make sure there's no emergencies. So.
Yep. Other questions? Well, I want to then, so my to-dos, I will contact Mike right away and see what happened to that recording. We'll be meeting on informally, whoever would like to join, on the 9th at 10 o'clock. And I'll send out the Zoom. I don't know if I want to do a calendar invite, but I'll send out an email to the listserv, and that way you'll have the Zoom link if you'd like to join. Okay? All right. We're looking kind of glum. It's the holidays. I hope everyone has a really good break, and we will talk to everybody in 2020. And other than that, again, I will have my cell phone with me. My phones will be forwarded. If anything comes up, please don't hesitate to call. Okay? All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in 2020.